With the stock market at record highs, are you prepared for the next downturn? Corrections can be unforgiving. Smart investors know diversification is the key to financial security. Noble Gold Investments make it easy to diversify with gold. With over $2 billion in sales, Noble Gold has helped thousands of Americans add gold to their portfolios. Open a qualified account today and receive 2 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful coins as a thank you. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Don't let the next correction catch you off guard. NobleGoldInvestments.com. We are here in Washington, D.C., which is better yet probably called the Liberation Capital. This is the heart of the liberation, the heart of where you getting your country back is headquartered. It's a big fight. As you know, there are arrests occurring and deportations happening in real time. Hardened criminals, the worst of the worst, are being rounded up. Child sex traffickers, rapists, drug criminals, smugglers are being rounded up in large numbers, and they are being deported. However, we must now talk about that next piece. Deported to where? And deported how? So far, 2,681 terrible criminals, hardened, the worst of the worst, have been rounded up and are being sent back to their country of origin. Now, this is a very important point. The country of origin element requires a little bit of diplomacy and a little bit of creativity. There are 4 people in particular that I want to point out of just kind of the example of the individuals that have been arrested. The first of which, here on whitehouse.gov, this person was arrested in Buffalo, New York, with suspected ties to the ISIS terrorist organization. Next person was arrested in Los Angeles by ICE, Immigration's Custom and Enforcement, for being an MS-13 gang member wanted for murder. Oh, that's nice. He's just walking the streets. Joe Biden never cared about rounding these people up. The next guy, just walking the streets of Seattle, was convicted for the rape of a child. Next guy, walking the streets of New Orleans, convicted of sexual abuse and kidnapping. 2,681 people arrested. Now, once they're arrested, they're quickly processed and sent back to their country of origin. And that is where things got very interesting over the weekend. The return to their country of origin. Now, Tom Homan, President Trump, and the entire immigration squad, Stephen Miller, have designed a plan to be able to deport millions of people that are here illegally. So they started to round up people from Colombia, put them on an airplane, and sent them back to Colombia. But the leadership of Colombia in Bogota, by the name of Gustavo Petro, said, no, we are not going to receive these people that we sent out of our country that are making America more dangerous, less safe, and a harder place to live. He's tried to dig in. So here's the steps. It's about 6 steps that occurred on Sunday afternoon. You might have been watching the Washington Redskins versus the Eagles or the Bills and Chiefs. Don't get me started. I feel so bad for Josh Allen. Separate topic for another time. The ref stole it. But that's a separate issue. But I was watching The Real Show. The Real Show that involved our livelihoods and the future of our civilization was the show of President Donald Trump putting on a masterclass that will now be in the Trump Library called the Colombian Masterclass, or a Sunday afternoon solving the world's problems. President Donald Trump was golfing, meeting with friends, while he was putting forward, without a doubt, the most precise, well-orchestrated, step-by-step, thoughtful, and deep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves to be able to send illegals back to their countries of origin. Now, of course, this is obvious, but it's worthy of repeating. We are the incumbent superpower. We are the strongest country on the planet. We are the world's reserve currency status. People want to invest in our nation. You have Saudi Arabia saying we're going to go spend $600 billion to try to win favor with President Trump. We are the desirable market. Under Joe Biden and previous Democrat presidents, we haven't acted that way. We hold all the cards. So you would think that when the world's largest nation, when the superpower comes knocking and says, you're going to accept these couple dozen, that's all it was, which is a couple dozen criminals back into your country, Colombia would say, sir, yes, sir, whatever you need. Because the Colombian economy is largely dependent on trade, commerce, and immigration with the United States of America. Almost all of Central and South America is dependent on friendly relationships with our nation. We are still the richest. We are still the most desirable place to put and deploy capital. Their muscle memory was based on the Biden regime. What do you mean we have to accept all these criminals? We're an equal nation as you. Okay. So here's the 6 steps that occurred. Step 1, Trump sends the flights. Step 2, President Gustavo Petro says, no, we're not going to accept them. Now, step 3 is worthy of a lot of time. We're just going to press pause and read this piece by piece because it was a masterclass. You see, President Donald Trump had a decision to make. He could engage in private diplomacy or a public example. In this particular instance, a public example was the only move. Now, mind you, private diplomacy very well would have worked equally as effective. But why is it that President Donald Trump decided to escalate this situation so quickly, so rapidly, with such overwhelming economic force? The reason being is that if Colombia started playing games, then Nicaragua might start playing games, and Honduras might start playing games, and Panama might start playing games. And you would have a regional resistance domino theory where all of these Central and South American countries would think that they could play games with the United States of America, and Colombia was a perfect country to make a public example of it. And so President Donald Trump decided to escalate. And the Colombian leadership was probably so taken aback. The equivalent would be that if you're just kind of at a 1 out of 10, and President Donald Trump went to a 9 out of 10 right out of the gate. This shows how well prepared the administration was when they came in, how well prepared this team was. Colombia's president assumed he could just say no. No, we're not going to do this. But this new Trump administration was ready, able, willing, prepared. There was a list of actions that they were ready to take once a leader was dumb enough to FAFO. And I'm not going to say that because we are live on radio broadcasting. And I'm going to read this entire Truth Social post from President Trump because it is so smart and so strategic. And you better believe any of the other actors in the region that were even thinking of resisting, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, Ecuador, they were watching the Colombian masterclass example. So, oh boy, I don't know if I want that. And Colombia became the momentary center of gravity. It became the center of emphasis of all focus, where all the other regional countries were watching and saying, okay, Colombia, you want to pick a fight with the superpower? I mean, Colombia, I don't think they have a navy. It's not exactly a fight that they're going to win. And this would never escalate to military conflict, but economic conflict, they're barely a second world nation, almost a third world nation. They're right on the edge. Certainly not first world. And I'm going to read what President Trump authored because it sent a message not just to that freak who's the president of Colombia, but to every other nation. This is not just about bullying other countries or starting flights. This is about not getting taken advantage of and not being the dumping ground of the third world. So Colombia refuses, and President Donald Trump responds. And I want you to listen carefully because we're going to go through word by word. This was not just something that President Trump sent off on a whim on a golf course. This is something that President Trump sat down with his team and they thoughtfully had waiting in their back pocket. They had all of this ready. And they said, okay, who's going to be the first country to resist us? Who's going to be the first country to say that you're not going to accept your own people? And just time out. Hold on. If Colombia was willing to risk their entire economy over a couple dozen migrants, that shows you how dangerous these people actually are. Secondly, I thought these were the most wonderful people. These are dreamers. They make our country stronger. It exposes the big lie about mass migration. Countries do not want these people. In fact, I'm going to get into the Haiti example later, which is just so delicious. Do you know that the Haitian president says the return of Haitians to his country will destabilize his country? Yeah, that's the point. Thank you for making our argument for us. Oh, so the return of Haitians back to Haiti will destabilize Haiti. Huh. I thought that these were future Elon Musks. I thought these people that were going to split the atom and they were going to create ChatGPT. President Donald Trump wrote, this is so smart from him, I can't put this into words. Even President Trump's critics and skeptics said this is next level. Joe Biden would never do this, Barack Obama, George W. Bush. This is creativity, stones, spine, direction. President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social, I was just informed that 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. Again, this was not something that was just authored on a whim. This was President Trump's 4 years of thinking that he was able to deploy. Emergency 25% tariffs on all goods coming to the United States. In 1 week, the 25% tariffs will be raised to 50%. A travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and allies and supporters. Pause. This means all of the oligarchs of Colombia, all of their drug criminals, they're not going to be able to visit their yachts in Miami. They're not going to be able to go shopping on Fifth Avenue. They're not going to be able to go to Beverly Hills. What President Trump did with the travel ban and immediate visa revocations is so smart because he was going after the economy with the tariffs and then he was going after the lifestyle with the oligarchs. And so all the oligarchs are probably working the phones. Petro, what the heck are you doing? I got kids that are going to University of Miami. I got kids at Georgetown. I got kids at Harvard. And I can't go visit my kids. What he went for is the lifestyle of the ruling class of the Colombian elite, which created internal turmoil. He continues, visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government. Sorry, Miss Petro, you're not allowed to go shopping anymore in downtown New York. You have to go to Paris. Continuing, enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds. This, by the way, I think this one should hold. This is his not so subtle way of saying, I'm going to find every little sliver of cocaine you maniacs are trafficking into Houston. This is his way of saying, I am going to choke point and publicize that you guys are narco criminals that are poisoning the American body politic. This is code. This struck at the absolute core of the Colombian drug trade, which is a huge part of the black market of the Colombian oligarchs. This is where it gets really aggressive. IEEPA Treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. Essentially, you can't transfer money into the United States. All those remittances, not going to happen. These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regards to the acceptance and the return of criminals they forced into the United States. So at this point, the president of Colombia had a decision to make after all of these tariff threats. And the president of Colombia I think got some really bad advice. My gut is that some Democrat politicians or allies were advising the president of Colombia, be the resistance, hold the line, call it a blockade. Yeah, I don't think that was a good idea. Okay, so after President Trump issued that threat, the Colombian president thought he could go halfway. He said, oh, I'll accept this flight, but not future flights and none of your other demands. And President Donald Trump said, sorry, not good enough for us. We will proceed as planned. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been incredible throughout this process, by the way. He was 10 out of 10 yesterday, and Marco Rubio deserves a lot of credit. He was behind the scenes, kind of being a little bit of good cop. Understand, Marco Rubio speaks fluent Spanish. So while this was ongoing, Marco Rubio was likely, I can almost say certainly, I don't have this factually known, but on the phone speaking Spanish to the Colombian government saying, are you guys out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? What are you doing exactly? President Donald Trump has come in with salvo. An economic tomahawk missile is what he was doing. And Marco Rubio was diplomatically speaking to them as the Secretary of State, of which he should do, by the way, saying, you guys are loco. Muy loco. Stop it. So the Colombian government, for about a 3 to 4 hour period, thought, and I have a theory as to why, that they could win this standoff. The Colombian government was probably getting some advice by American-funded NGOs or Democrat senators or staff or some allies or associates saying, dig in. You can be the international resistance. This is our moment. And the argument that people like AOC were making on Twitter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was that Americans really want their coffee, their Colombian coffee, and this will break them. Listen, first of all, there's other countries that we get coffee from, number one. Number two, Colombian coffee isn't that good. Number three, if Americans want coffee, Colombians want a lot more than just coffee. They are wholly dependent on the American economy. So they tried to dig in. So what did President Trump do? He started implementing the policy. This is where it got to be so smart. Where President Donald Trump started to actually implement his threat. The U.S. Embassy in Bogota started issuing visa cancellations in real time. President Donald Trump said, effective now will be a 50% tariff. You guys want to play around? You think you can stand up to us? By the way, let's be perfectly clear. What was our ask? For those out there that say, oh, you shouldn't just bully other countries, hold on a second. What was our ask? Were we saying that we wanted access to their natural gas or minerals? No, it was a very crisply delivered inquiry. Will you take back your people that you sent to us? They belong to you. These are Colombian passport holders. These are passport holders of the Colombian government. Not that complicated. And just think about this for a second. Colombia is refusing to take their own people? Carrie Lake from Voice of America, as she assumes leadership there, she should, again, she's kind of the international media arm of the American government. If I'm a Colombian citizen and I travel to Germany and I get in trouble in Germany, will the Colombian government receive me in return? The rank and file Colombian citizens should be outraged about this, that their own Colombian government won't take their own citizens when they're returning. That their own Colombian government will say, sorry, you're not allowed back into your homeland. I mean, if that's not a breakdown of the social contract, I don't know what is, but we know what's really going on here. We know what's going on. That these are bad hombres. These are the worst of the worst. And Gustavo Petro, the socialist who runs Colombia, is upset that he now has to take care of his own people. Guess what? Playtime is over. I will say the Democrats would have a really strong point here. The Democrats would have an overwhelmingly strong point here if all of these leaders were celebrating the return of these people. If Gustavo Petro would like throw a parade when these people landed in Bogota, you'd say, okay, maybe the Democrats were not right, but at least they have a strong argument that these people are worthwhile having in a country. No, it's the opposite. They're doing the opposite of a parade. They're doing a blockade. They're trying to block the entrance of their own citizens to come back into their country. They want nothing to do with them. They want no association. They believe them to be dangerous existential threats to their country. So President Donald Trump starts to implement this policy. And the president of Colombia probably said, I'm going to be this stubborn person. In fact, he said, if you've ever met somebody stubborn, I am the most stubborn person that you could possibly meet. President Donald Trump says, okay, we're America, you're Colombia, we have cities that are wealthier than your entire country. We're done. And within hours, the knee was bent. Terms of surrender were brokered. And just like that, in one day, Colombia and Gustavo Petro conceded to every single demand of the United States government. This is big, everybody. This is big. We have not seen a president act like this in my lifetime. George W. Bush would never do this. Barack Obama, and Biden, of course not, but the entire Biden staff, what Donald Trump did was mean. And more importantly, what Donald Trump did was masculine. The Biden regime was one of toxic femininity, feelings-based. Well, we can't offend the Colombian people. We can't tell them what to do. They might get upset with us. No, the new ascendant masculine energy that is taking over the federal government in the best possible way is, no, we call the shots. Playtime is over. Dad is home. The statement writes as this last evening. After all of this, the 6 steps, Trump sends the flights, they refuse. Trump issues the threats, they dig in. Trump implements the threats, and then they capitulate. It is full capitulation. Quote, the government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft without limitation or delay. Based on this agreement, the fully drafted IEEPA tariffs and sanctions will be held in reserve and not signed unless Colombia fails to honor this agreement. Let me just pause. This is a sword of Damocles hanging over the Colombian government. They have to accept all of the narco criminals, all of the child sex traffickers, all of the illegals, or else tariffs will be issued at any time. The visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced inspections from Customs and Border Patrol will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again, and President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States. We are behaving like a country with dignity. We took decades of abuse because we were ruled by people who hate Americans. And Gustavo Petro just happened to be in the middle of it. And now you better believe that there are meetings happening all across the region. In fact, we have this document from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation from Honduras, an urgent, extraordinary meeting of presidents and heads of states of CELAC, C-E-L-A-C, which I believe is the Council of Latin American Countries. And agenda items, migration, environment, and Latin American and Caribbean unity. In this regard, it is reported that said meeting has scheduled in a hybrid format. It is also worth noting that His Excellency Gustavo Petro Urrego, president of Colombia, incoming PPT of CELAC, has confirmed his participation in this call. And the Caribbean, which includes Haiti. So all of the regional actors are now meeting today saying, oh my goodness, we have to accept our own people. We have to accept our own people that we tried to dump on America. I want you to just to think how perverse and sick this is, that these countries are freaking out, that they have to steward their own people. They thought that they could just leave them at the doorstep of America. They thought they could dump them into your neighborhoods, dump them on your college campuses where they murder people like Laken Riley and Rachel Morin. They thought they could dump them into the interior of the United States. And now all of a sudden, it's coming back. They're coming back, and they don't know what to do about it. What is the counter argument from the Democrats? Well, here's the great J.D. Vance, who was just phenomenal this weekend. He's looking more and more like he might be the 48th president of the United States. Let's play cut 18.
By immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by...
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
As J.D. Vance clearly says, we don't have to have the dumbest immigration in the world. We are back, everybody. We are back. I have a non-sarcastic, provocative question. What do they teach in these schools of diplomacy and statecraft? What is it that they actually teach in the Woodrow Wilson School of Diplomacy? Here in Washington, D.C., where we are doing this broadcast, you have George Washington, you have Georgetown, where you have people that study to become diplomats. What exactly is taught in these schools? Because President Donald Trump just upended all of the established order, and he made fools out of all of them. The experts were losing their mind yesterday. President Donald Trump is trying to start a trade war. They are so short-sighted, and they're still criticizing it. Well, that was unneeded drama. That was unneeded pandemonium. That was unnecessary upheaval. No, it was a necessary public example, and now all of these other countries are going to have to take their own people. Now, to be honest, I understand the argument if we were sending Nicaraguans to Colombia. That would not be a morally clear argument. I would get that. I would understand the argument if we were sending Mexicans to Brazil. We're sending people back to their own country, the country they were raised in, the country that they were schooled in, the country they are citizens of. And so for all of the International Diplomatic Corps expert class, what exactly are you experts in? You're experts in appeasement? You're experts in bending the knee? Because they actually do not have any perspective to protect America at all costs. These diplomats, it's not as if they're dumb. It's as if they don't actually want America to succeed. What this does is it suggests that diplomacy is mostly fake. They have fake expertise. That is exactly what I wanted to get at. Is that all of this schooling, all of this time in colleges, all of this time where they're, pretending that they're working in the State Department. What really matters is instinct, very basic rules of interaction, and the most important thing, the will. A common theme here on the Charlie Kirk Show. Do you have the will to do what is necessary? The feminine, toxically feminine perspective is to, well, we don't want to offend people, and I guess Colombia is a country, and well, why don't we just keep their rapists and their criminals and their child sex traffickers? Whereas President Trump says, this is stupid. Why are we putting up with this? We're not going to get ripped off. We're not going to do stupid things. You look out for your own country and your own people, and you don't need to be a lifelong State Department diplomat. So for all of these lifelong State Department diplomats, I hope you guys understand that you have no credibility in the eyes of the American people. The same way that we lost such credibility for public health officials during COVID, the same way that we lost credibility for people like Fauci and Birx, we are now losing credibility for all of our permanent State Department corps, diplomatic corps, for Anthony Blinken, for even some of the Kissinger stuff. I mean, all of the criteria that has been built for diplomacy has just been upended in the last 24 hours. It has all changed. It is a permanent, stark contrast. What they're experts in is deteriorating borders, weakening the currency, and allowing a bunch of foreigners into the country. Okay, that doesn't take a lot of skill. What you just saw in amazing display of was President Trump rolling back the Great Reset. Was President Trump rolling back all of this globalist push that was authored by, that was written by, that was published by the permanent State Department Corps? The same people that brought you the Iran deal, the same people that brought you the Russian-Ukrainian war, the same people that brought you all of the major conflicts, the Iraq war, the conflict in Libya, the conflict in Syria. Here you have a guy who was once president, a billionaire businessman who broke every single rule of Washington yesterday. Threatened tariffs, implemented tariffs, revoked visas, said we're going to put on sanctions. Every established dogma of D.C. was upended in the last 24 hours. And he won, not just a little bit, a triumphant, full capitulation, absolute bend-the-knee surrender. He broke all of the rules and it worked. So what does that say about the rules? Maybe these couple thousand professional State Department diplomatic corps that we always kind of bow to as if they're the ones that keep us safe, they're all frauds. They're all fake.